Hello, hello. Welcome, everyone. Just going to give a few seconds to a few more folks that are trickling in. But to those of you that are already here, thank you for joining and also for participating in the chat. I see a few of you already in there. So welcome officially to today's webinar titled 5 Ways to Level Up Your Personalization Strategy in 2024. My name is Brenda, and I'll be here to address any technical or general questions that you might have. But before we dive into today's presentation, I'm just going to go over some general housekeeping items. On the slide here, you'll see just a general breakdown of today's agenda, about 5 minutes for today's introductions and about 35 to 40 minutes for the presentation. And we'll also have some live Q&A at the end. So we'll have that. And then we encourage you to, of course, interact with us today. We have 2 features where you can jump in. We have the chat feature, so please let us know where you're joining from. But we also have the Ask a Question feature. So if throughout today's presentation something pops into your mind, feel free to throw it in there and we'll address it at the end. Now for today, actually, let me jump into this one. Sorry about that. For today, I am joined by Acquia, who's today's sponsor. Now, Acquia empowers thousands of the world's most ambitious brands to create digital customer experiences. With open source Drupal at its core, the Acquia digital experience platform enables marketers, developers, and IT operations teams to rapidly compose and deploy digital products and services that engage customers, enhance conversions, and help businesses stand out. Now today, I'm joined by Bryant and Scott. Bryant is the Director of Product Marketing at Acquia, and Scott is the Chief Data Officer at Brooklyn Data and Villiers. Bryant, Scott, over to you both. Please take it away.
Great. Thank you so much, Brian. This is Bryant. As Brian mentioned, I am the Director of Product Marketing at Acquia, specifically focused on our Marketing Cloud products. And I'm happy to be here today with a great data expert, Scott, who's going to give us some phenomenal insight. I'm going to let him give you a little bit of his background before we get started, and then we'll jump into the agenda and get rolling.
Amazing. Well, thanks for the intro, Bryant. As Bryant says, my name is Scott Breitenother. I'm Chief Data Officer at Brooklyn Data and Villiers. We are a full stack data and analytics consultancy focused on helping folks design their data strategies, bring their data all in one place, make really great business decisions, and then use that data to kind of design personalization strategies and design personalized digital experiences. Brooklyn Data is part of Villiers, a full-service digital agency.
Great. Thanks, Scott. And thanks, everybody, for joining us today. Data and personalization continue to be top of mind for almost every organization these days. Some are doing it well. Some are struggling a little bit. Most are somewhere in the middle. And today, Scott and I hope to provide you with some updates on what's happening within the space, and then provide some advice and guidance based on our experience that can help you make the most out of your data and personalization solutions in your quest to create productive customer journeys. And you can see here our agenda. We'll start with that general information that I was mentioning, kind of state of the state. And then dive into 5 strategic avenues that can help amplify your personalization efforts. And then we'll do a quick recap, open things up for questions, and then wrap up. So our first slide here is the changing face of personalization. Personalization certainly isn't new. We've been doing it for a long time on the digital side of the house. More than 2 decades, but a lot has changed, and it continues to change very, very frequently, very, very quickly, I should say. But it's not just an e-commerce thing. I think when we look back, where personalization really started to have its roots, it was more B2C and focused on e-commerce. But now we're seeing personalization efforts across all verticals. And I think that's something where Both Scott and I at our respective companies get more and more inquiries from healthcare groups or travel and leisure or manufacturing, just as much as we're getting it from retail. And to kind of back that up, Acquia did a customer experience trend report at the tail end of 2023. And as part of that report, what we found was that although budgets were flat, 83% of marketers said that they were being asked to deliver personalized content or content differently so that it could stand out when it was placed next to goods or services to help increase conversion. So it is one of those situations where we're all dealing with a little bit less, but being asked to do a little bit more. And that kind of gets to our next bullet here, which is consumers' expectations are evolving, and they're evolving in such a way where they expect more personalized experiences. They expect brands to understand their preferences and their interests. In that same survey, and we'll provide a link to the report at the end, but 58% of consumers said that they like it when brands seem to know their interests or preferences. And that number continues to increase over time. But over half of the folks out there are really expecting that from brands as they interact with them in all the different channels. And then data availability.
I guess,
go ahead,
Brian, maybe even just jumping in there, just combining those first 2 points, it really is like, this used to be, something that people were just expecting with Amazon and, companies to remember what you just added to cart. But to Bryant's point is the consumer today is expecting their healthcare providers to understand kind of the context of, where they are on their journey, their accountant, their lawn mowing service. I mean, truly everything, the consumer expectation is so high that this isn't just an e-commerce thing. All organizations that are touching users and customers, the expectation is to be personalizing and to know your users. It's table stakes now.
And, absolutely. And I think to your point, if I get something in the mail or if I get an email or anything like that is so out of place that I'm like, this person or this company doesn't know me at all, I now have a negative impression of that brand. Because my expectation is that you're going to know something. There's enough data out there. You should know something about me. Absolutely. And then the last bullet here is data power. So, we've always had data, though we have much more of it now than we've ever had before. But the processing and computing power that has been in place the last couple of years has really amplified what we're capable of doing. So, if you think about ChatGPT as an example, the processing power for ChatGPT is approximately the equivalent to the computing power of the 20 most powerful supercomputers in the world. So ChatGPT has done a lot of great things, and I think we're seeing more and more of that Gen I types of applications, but that's only possible through the collection of really good data and the new kind of I don't want to say supercomputer per se, but the upgraded performance that we've seen from a lot of these vendors. Jump over to the next slide.
Continuing some of the trends that Bryant was saying, it is just it's wild how quickly the face of personalization is updating it and kind of adapting to all of the broader contexts. And so, the first one is, that comes to mind for me is that privacy is important and, well, it's complicated. Privacy has always been important, but I feel like if you ask folks 5 years ago, that was a European thing. That was GDPR. But now we've got we're developing, at least in the US, this complex web of local regulations. We've got CCPA from 2020. CCPA was updated with the CPRA in 2023. The Texas Privacy Act came into place in 2023, and the challenges here is that each brand needs to be able to navigate this really complex, never always moving, always evolving web of local regulations. And for better or for worse, a lot of the times it's the marketers, it's the folks that are driving the personalization that are where the rubber meets the road. Because the folks that are doing personalization, doing marketing, doing segmentation are the folks that are really pushing the envelope. They're using the data kind of in meaningful external ways, and so it's putting the marketers in a position where they need to be very familiar and aware of the evolving privacy landscape and what that means for what you can and can't do.
And Scott, well, the perfect example of that was last year. Facebook, who you would think would be on top of just about everything, was fined $1.3 billion by the European Union to stop the transfer of data they were collecting from moving that data from Europe to the United States. So if there's real financial implications if you don't understand what those privacy regulations are.
And speaking of additional kind of complexities, we've been talking about it for a while, but I really do think that the end of the third-party cookies here, it is definitely the beginning of the end. Many browsers are natively blocking third-party cookies. Google is beginning to block, a percentage of kind of third-party cookies at the beginning of this year in Chrome. We really need to be aware of what this means in the context of marketing, personalization, knowing our users, and really double down on first-party data, first-party cookies, first-party data collection, because a lot of those third-party cookies that we've relied on for the last 20 years are going to be going away. And then building off of what Bryant was saying on the last side is Gen AI is here. I like to say it's changing everything and nothing. We're still trying to figure out what exactly it's going to be impacting, but it's very clear that, where it might be impacting personalization is content generation. If you think about all the kind of one of the limiters often for personalization is having so many different variations of content. And rather than hiring an army of folks that develop the content, Gen AI is a really great option. And then segmentation, using Gen AI to think of novel customer journeys and segments is also kind of really top of mind. But to the point that it's also changing nothing, good data, good fundamentals have never been more important. And so I don't think any of us are out of a job because of Gen AI. The fundamentals are super important, but we really have to embrace a lot of the great ways that Gen AI is going to be changing our lives and changing personalization. Go for it. So if we look at, customer data, just kind of doubling down on some of the themes, I kind of view it as this data arms race. While Google and Amazon have always kind of set the standard for, knowing so much about their users, it's not just a big company game. Companies of all shapes and sizes are investing in data and personalization. And I get to the point later, but, and the tooling is evolving. And so the point here is that if you are not investing in data, and this doesn't mean we have to get to Amazon and Google, I don't think that's realistic. But if you're not taking the first steps forward, having thoughtful strategies, just know that your competitors and other folks in your industries are. And as Bryant was saying before, it's not just e-commerce. If you are in kind of some of the industries that have not traditionally embraced data, technology, personalization, it's coming, and so there is a real need to be aware and have an opinion and have a plan. Of course, better data equals more effective personalization. I like to say it politely. What is it? Good, bad quality data in, bad quality out, I guess is the political, the sensitive way of saying it.
Without being censored.
I don't want to be beeped. High quality connected data. So that means having data you can rely on, and connected data means data sets that you can join, is so important to segmentation personalization. If you don't have that data, that if you have two different views of data of your customer from different systems, and A, you can't rely on that data, and B, you can't bring it together, you're really limited on what you can, on the type of segmentation personalization you can do. And so, on the inverse is just better quality data, better connected data is higher ROI. The good news is you may already be collecting it. And so I'm your, friendly neighborhood data guy. On the data side, for the last few years, and, for even longer than that, data teams have been centralizing data infrastructure. If you think about like facts and dimension tables, you hear data warehouses, your data team might already have a lot of that data about the users joined together in your data warehouse. And a lot of that same data can power personalization. And then, I said a lot of scary things like arms races and privacy and things like that. Maybe I'll end on a positive note here, is that it's never been easier. The acronyms might be a little complicated, but things like customer data platforms, DXPs, data warehouses, today's technology is so much more intuitive, interconnected, scalable, and there's really an entry point for every company. You don't have to be, implementing massive mainframes. What you can do right now with a SaaS tool and a GUI-based interface is far more powerful than what folks needed servers and engineers 5 years ago. And so just take the positive note that it really is an exciting time for personalization, for data, and for marketers alike. I'll dig into kind of the types of customer data. Now, we could spend our whole day digging into each of these bubbles, but the big point is here is just to think creatively. There are so many types of data. You've got demographic, you've got behavior, what they're doing, your app, your website, interest data. Of course, there's transactions, what they've been purchasing. But think about things like customer support. How often are people calling into customer support? Are they easy customers? Are they painful customers? Think about like the full total lifetime value of someone, total costs. If a customer is an easy customer, doesn't use promo codes, and is loyal, it's a different customer than a customer that always uses promo codes, uses your customer support, resources all the time, and doesn't buy very often. There's things like social media loyalty programs you can customize based on geography. And then you have this whole kind of element of first-party data versus third-party data. What are we collecting ourselves versus what are we using external services to enrich our understanding of our users? And so this is just like I would say an invitation for folks to just really think creatively about all the data that they have available and kind of all that's out there. It's like there's so much data exhaust that is created by just us as human beings in the year 2024. And like I said before, your competitors, other folks in the industries are thinking about that. And so just be thoughtful about all the data that is out there. I'm going to hand it over to Bryant to talk a little bit about how we get that data.
Yeah, so all that data is out there. And then, the next question is, well, how do you gather it? How do you get it into a place that you can activate on it or you can use it? And as Scott mentioned, you're probably doing some of this already. We talked about the different types of data on the last slide. There's also the concept of anonymous versus known users. And you're probably collecting both types of data. So maybe you're collecting anonymous data from visitors on your website that you want to leverage, and you're collecting, through registration forms or other avenues, like transactions. You're actually, creating some of that data that are going to make your users known, which a lot of times can make things from a personalization standpoint even more powerful. So a couple of things to keep in mind here. Value exchange, I think, is the biggest one. So it's been well proven that people will provide you with their information if you can show that you can provide them value in return. If you ask them to download an ebook, and in order to do that, they need to fill out a 17-field form that includes their home address and their phone number and their mother's maiden name, they are not going to provide that. But if you can show an equal value to the user for the data that you're asking to collect, in most cases, they'll be very willing to do that and will be happy with the result. While you're doing that, there's a couple of things that you need to make sure that you've got in place. So be very clear on how you're going to use that data. Don't hide the link someplace in the bottom of your page or make it accessible only, if you go to the About Us section. People want to know how their data is going to be leveraged, and they're more likely, again, to give it to you if you understand that. And one of the big implications here is around third-party cookies. So even though third-party cookies are going away, we run the risk of people saying, I don't want any cookies. Like right now, you'll get a pop-up that says, accept cookies, decline cookies, manage cookies. And if people aren't comfortable and they decline all cookies, then you're losing valuable insight, even from some of your first-party data. So to make them more comfortable, you want to be very clear with how you're going to use it and why you're asking for it. And then the fourth bullet here is consent. Make sure that it's easy for them to get themselves in and out of different types of promotions or programs. Make sure that they have a very simple way to say, hey, I only want my transaction data. I just want receipts. I don't want promos or marketing materials, things like that. Make that as easy as possible. And then respect their privacy. And I think this kind of goes to all the things that are above it. It just kind of wraps it up, which is, data, use it thoughtfully, don't overstep, don't be creepy. So that's, there's everyone has an example, I think, at some point where, they're like, we could do this with the data we have, but should we do this with the data we have? Because it might actually give us a negative response from our customer.
I mean, it just put yourself in the shoes of your customer. I think there are a lot of ideas that sound good when you're whiteboarding or calculating
Right.
segment size, or you're using Boolean logic to create a segment in your CDP. But just truly say, like, if this was me and this happened, how would I feel? And I think the great thing is we're all people here. And so we can really channel what it's like to be a person. We're all people that are trying to navigate the year 2024, when data about us is everywhere and everybody knows everything about us. And so it's really easy to be empathetic and to understand. But I think we just have to remember that our users and our customers and our prospects are people too.
Absolutely. And just a quick example on that value exchange piece. We have a customer who's a software vendor in the financial services industry, and they were putting a lot of their content on YouTube. And they were struggling with getting good engagement, but they were also struggling with getting good first-party data. So they went through a brainstorming exercise. They came up with a number of different ideas. And in order to get more first-party data into their CDP, they actually launched their own video channel that was accessible on their site. And by doing that, they actually increased engagement by 26x. And in addition to the engagement, they got that first-party data that they weren't able to get from YouTube or some of the other streaming platforms. So, this is a combination of gathering customer data, kind of the more traditional ways, and then sometimes thinking out of the box on the best ways to do that value exchange. Okay, so here are the 5 ways to level up your personalization strategy. And there's only 5, Scott, right? We definitely don't, not 6.
I heard there's a rumor
5.
that there might be a 6, but we'll have to wait and see.
All right. So the first one, have a personalization strategy. This sounds so basic, but I cannot tell you the number of customers that I talk to. I'm like, what is your personalization strategy? And we just try stuff out. We're like, we want to personalize it based on geography. So we tried it out and maybe it worked, maybe it didn't, and we moved on. That's not a personalization strategy. You want to be able to kind of set a direction. You need to understand, once you know what that direction is, the level of investment, both maybe from a technology, but also a people standpoint, on how you're going to execute to get there. You want to have realistic and measurable goals. So everyone wants to get more conversions, but is that the only goal? Is the goal to have additional engagement on your site, more time spent on your site? Is the goal to provide more brand awareness? Maybe for emails, it's to get a higher open rate. So really look at what your specific goals are and how you're going to measure them, and get that on the table before you start to experiment. And then the third part of that personalization piece is define roles and responsibilities. So very often people are like, oh, that's the marketing department, they're going to do that. It's all good. That's not going to work, right? You need data. You're going to need your IT department. You need your marketing department. You need your creative department. If you've got multiple brands, you want to make sure that they're consistent across brands. And if it's omni-channel, it's consistent across channels. So you really want to have those roles and responsibilities laid out as that document, and then develop a roadmap on how you're going to get there.
And I think we just kind of adding one thing there, Brian, is
yeah.
I think of this as like from 1 to 4, those steps is like we're starting at the C level, the executive level. It's like, what is our North Star? What are our goals? And then you're translating into really kind of more tactical kind of team level goals. And then you're breaking those team level goals to kind of roles and responsibilities. And then, the roadmap is where the rubber meets the road. It's like, that's the journey, because, to Brian's point before is yes, it's great to experiment. It's great to try things, but we always want to make sure our tactics ladder up to our company strategy. Because if we're, I'll give you an example. If you're spending, everybody's kind of time and energy trying to optimize, to kind of add to cart or upsell, but the strategic direction is that we just actually want to, drive customer conversion. It's very often you might find yourself optimizing for something that is not kind of laddering up to the top level strategy of an organization. So it's just like always kind of keep that North Star in mind.
Absolutely. And that's perfect segue, as if you knew what this next slide was going to be, into this personalization model. So there's a lot of text here, and that's not really important. You can always go and look at this afterwards. But what I wanted to get across here is the number of times you'll get a C-level person come in and say, hey, I just saw this thing. Gen AI and machine learning, we need to do this, and we need to be omni-channel and one-to-one, hyper real-time personalization. And the marketing department is like, oh my God, not again. You don't need to be necessarily at the top right of this quadrant here, right? Or the top right of this chart, which is like one-to-one omni-channel personalization. Every organization will find a sweet spot somewhere along this curve or this line here on what's best for us. And that might be a single channel. It might be doing things based on demographic data only. It could be a combination of 1 or 2 channels and doing some predictive modeling. Get an understanding of where your North Star is, and then make your roadmap map to that. And don't think that you have to be Amazon or that you have to be, Microsoft. That's not what you're going to need to do, and it'll cost you a fortune to do that. And you better make sure that there's an ROI if, in fact, that is your North Star.
And what we're saying is, when we say have a roadmap, have a plan, it's not saying, it needs to be a big plan or a complex roadmap. It's just be thoughtful. It could be just like, we're going to do 1 test this year. And that's totally fine. Just be proactive instead of reactive. And speaking about being proactive, let's proactively get some of that data. These, I feel like all roads in personalization lead to data. And so, one of the things I really like to kind of do and recommend to folks I work with is to develop a data acquisition plan. And, it's pretty simple. It's at first we're going to inventory our data. What customer data is available? But it's not just, let's do a list of, we have, transaction data, we have this, we have that. But it's like, how is it being collected? How frequent are we getting it? What usage permissions do we have? We want to be thoughtful there, because like, what if we want to run a campaign to a real-time personalization campaign, but we're getting this data once a day? What if, we have this data source and, we can't actually legally use it? So those are the type of things that we want to be thoughtful about. And then once you have that, you've inventoried that data, you want to know where are the gaps. How does that, how does the data available compare with the data we need to deliver on our personalization roadmap? Is it the availability? Is it the permission? Is it the freshness? And then, the last one is, how do we close the gaps? How do we develop that plan to truly understand how we get from the data we have to the data we need? And again, it's a journey. The expectation, not that we need to know everything about every user all the time, instantly. It's let's prioritize based on our roadmap. What are the things we need? And maybe there's an MVP version where we're getting it once a day or once an hour, or heck, maybe it's a CSV that we're uploading. Everything's possible. It's just really just being premeditated, being thoughtful about it. Then kind of continuing to dig in there. Again, I'm your I would say your friendly neighborhood data person. So I'm always going to be talking about data and technology. Technology is your friend. I know it's scary. Sometimes it's complex. There are so many different acronyms in this space. It's wild. But I think successful, marketing technology implementations come down to building, having a deep and close interaction with technology. And so I would say first, build bridges with the data and technology teams in your organization. Personalization requires that data and technology. It's, we can't, if you have a roadmap that says we're going to test using data about this kind of data in Q1, but the data and technology team aren't collecting until Q2, we've got a challenge. We've got an issue. So we need to make sure we're aligned. Planning cycles are aligned. Prioritization is aligned. We might even be on a joint Scrum team or project team, like a cross-functional team. The next point I would say is kind of, that's the people side. Let's talk about technology. I actually don't even like saying MarTech anymore, because for me, the lines have blurred so much between MarTech, backend, data warehouse, data infrastructure. There's so many shared components, so many interconnected components that it really should be viewed as one unified technology stack. And so I just kind of challenge y'all. It's like, of course, we're going to make decisions. We have to move fast, but just really view this as one technology stack, one end to end. And I promise you'll be better for it. And then, this is one that I want to, chat about too, is that, yes, we want to move to a world where we know everything about our customers instantly and can instantly customize and personalize. But let's be realistic. I think, let's live in a batch world. So kind of doing things once a day, once an hour, kind of, that type of cadence. But look for those opportunities where it's like, heck, if I really know something about someone, whether it's an add to cart, it's an abandoned cart, what are those opportunities where I can develop speed lanes? Because yes, we want to stay in this unified technology, but just know when there's opportunities to do direct connections and move faster, because sometimes the juice is worth the squeeze in real time. And when you see those opportunities, you'll definitely know them. Brian, do you want to talk about machine learning?
I do. But before I do that, I think I sent out the survey results. I clicked on a button that said send results to audience. So I'm hoping the audience got them. And I wanted to just spend a quick minute on this because it's actually a little bit surprising. And I thought it's definitely worth bringing up. So when we did our CX trends report, the number one thing when we asked marketers what they believe to be the single most important factor affecting digital experiences over the next 18 months, the highest response, 35%, was the ability to gather enough data about consumer preferences to create productive digital experiences. And actually here, that if I kind of equate that to insufficient or inaccurate customer data, is the lowest scoring item on our survey. I do think that gaps in integration and technology also maps a little bit to that not being able to have enough data, enough information, and that is at 23%. But this number surprised me a little bit, which was the no clear path to ROI. I don't know, Scott, if you've got any thoughts on that. I know, kind of ad hoc conversation.
Yeah, I feel like this is that if you are looking for ROI for a multi-million-dollar investment in tooling and people, I think it's going to be a challenge. And it's going to be a challenge because that's a big investment that has to justify a big return. But it doesn't leave opportunity to learn, experiment as you go, find quick wins. And so that comes down to the roadmap is like, how do we MVP it? And so I think the challenge for the folks that don't feel like there's a clear path for ROI, let's do it quick and dirty. Let's upload CSVs. Let's do some personalization. let's not have it as kind of real time, and let's run tests. And so I've always found that kind of executives, folks that are in charge of budgeting, really respond well to kind of wins, proof points, and I totally get it. I think it's intimidating to do a multi-million-dollar investment, but they ask for the group, the kind of group, and the challenge to the group is like, how can you find an MVP version to test it out and get ROI and prove out ROI?
Yeah, and I think that testing piece is key. So a lot of customers that we talk to will run a personalization campaign without doing any type of like control group or without doing any type of A/B testing, so that they can get a better feel of, is this really having an impact? And that's a really important part of your MVP, or as you're getting started, is to do that control group, do that A/B testing, so you can really start to see, am I getting the results I expected? And obviously, going way back to our roadmap slide, hopefully I've got those results and measurable criteria mapped out before I get started. So machine learning models, I felt like this needed to be in our top 5. We talk a lot about Gen AI. That is new. Machine learning models are not new. They've been around for a while, and they've got a proven track record. Now, you need good data in order to have good machine learning models, but leveraging these can have a really strong impact, and can, again, when we talk about ROI, can get you to that ROI a lot of times faster than some of the other methods. And I'll give you a couple of examples. You'll see here common machine learning models. These are the typical ones. This is actually the ones that come standard in the Acquia CDP. And some of these have been leveraged by our customers to have some pretty incredible results. So we've got an organization that used likelihood to buy to increase their conversion rates by 6 times for multiple campaigns that they were running, which pretty good ROI on that. I think the better ROI was likely to pay full price. So this is a machine learning model that looks at customers and says, hey, this group of customers really only buys when you give them discounts or when you give them coupons. And this group of customers, it doesn't really matter. You might not need to send them all of those discounts. And we had a shoe manufacturer that actually used that and tailored their emails and campaigns to customers that were likely to pay full price. And using that approach, their campaigns, which were projected to bring in about $500,000, generated $1.4 million in revenue using that machine learning model as the basis. So really getting an opportunity to see what products you might already have in-house that have machine learning models that you might be able to leverage, or thinking about what data you need to collect in order to effectively create these models. Not all models are the same. You're going to get some that are, really basic and not customizable. And Scott, I'm sure you got an opinion on that. That I would love to hear. But if you get good ones, they can have a really good, powerful impact.
Yeah, I mean, +1 to everything you said, and just like all those common ML models, they might have come from retail and e-com, but they have, a lot of applicability across various industries. And don't feel like you have to reinvent the wheel or bring in a machine learning architect. A lot of these are baked into these modern day kind of CDP and MarTech solutions. Well, maybe I will talk about ensuring omnichannel consistency. And maybe there might be a bonus 6.
I know, I'm holding out. I thought there were only 5.
I thought there would be only 5 as well. So we wanted to make sure that the strategy we develop is omnichannel, because we're interacting with our customers in so many different ways these days, that the strategy needs to be kind of encompass, or at least be aware of those different kind of channels. And when I mean encompass or aware, means we could be testing and personalizing across every single way we interact with the customer. That's kind of hard, to be honest. And so let's at least be aware and make sure that we're kind of developing the test, the personalization in specific channels, so that it's in a way so it's cohesive with the other channels, even if we're not testing and personalizing in those other channels, because we have to be aware that folks are touching our brand in many different ways. And to that point, we want to coordinate creative across activation channels. I'm sure we've all been there where we click on an email or an ad, and then we get on a landing page, and maybe the landing page has nothing to do with the ad we click on, or maybe has everything to do with it, and then you click on it and it gets you the main site is completely different. And listen, it's not always going to be perfect, but just really be thoughtful about the handoffs between different touch points and different kind of ways where you're interacting with your customers. Avoid situations where creative feels disjointed between touch points. And then last one is, to the extent possible, ensure all channels are up to date. You hate for one channel that's to know that you've churned or completed a purchase, and the other one is still trying to remarket to you. I mean, make sure the simplest example is a suppression list. I mean, we've all been there where like we've been shopping something for weeks or days or hours. We make the purchase and then we get retargeted about it. I'm like, love the brand, actually, I just bought it. And so just need to be aware.
Yeah, and that there's a cost savings there too, right? I mean, if you're paying for ads on Facebook or Instagram or Google, and you're not, if you've got, let's say you've got a CDP or some other data warehouse where you've got that data, the second that purchase happens, pull them out of that list, because you're now paying for something that the person's already purchased. They're actually losing margin on that purchase every time you show them that ad again. So great point there.
Rumor has it. Rumor is true. we have a sixth, and I think this is just hopefully this ties it all together. Is you're never done. This isn't we've developed this strategy we put in place and we're good. We're good. Team can disassemble. We really want to be constantly learning. We want to have holdout tests, and holdout groups and A/B tests, and really just take the learnings from our personalization strategies and evolve them. And it's not just evolve them to refine them, but we want to challenge our assumptions, because user behaviors change. Users' behaviors change in a kind of more micro sense. Like users just get used to or get tired of kind of a specific brand's interface. But in a macro sense, users are influenced by millions, billions of different factors, different brands they see, technology, general zeitgeist, the kind of the formula that worked for Scott and Bryant today is not going to necessarily work for us to personalize for us tomorrow. We're evolving as humans, as kind of a segment. We might not fit as neatly in segments. The segments might be different. So just always remember to challenge assumptions. And then this kind of last bit of evolving is remember your North Star. And this means that I've been in this, and I'm guilty of this, just as guilty as everybody else. You get into these whiteboarding sessions, you're defining strategies, you're developing experiences, and you get so into it. And then you look up, it's like, how did we even get here? And it really is just make sure that, regularly, and not every hour, not every minute, but just at key junctures, you're looking up and does this ladder up to the kind of the strategy, the North Star, the direction, the goals that we established at the executive level, at the team level? Because it really is just kind of, sometimes there's this cognitive inertia, everybody kind of gets going. And so just make sure you're remembering your North Star. I mean, that's kind of a trick that I think applies to personalization, but really truly applies to any sort of kind of strategic initiative. And so I know we're coming up on time, and I'm sure we will, leave some time for Q&A, but just want to recap. And again, you'll have all these slides, so you can dig in on your own time. So 5 ways, actually 6 ways to level up your personalization strategy in 2024. The first one is to have a strategy. And again, it doesn't have to be the best, it doesn't have to be a 40-page document. It doesn't have to be $1 million initiative. Just be thoughtful and have a strategy. Develop a data acquisition plan. So you're going to be looking at kind of what data I have, what do I need, how do I get there? Leveraging machine learning. And yes, you might want to hire an ML engineer internally, but more often than not, you should lean on those kind of CDPs, those marketing technologies you have access to. And speaking of technology, it's your friend. Go out and meet the data folks, go meet the technology folks, develop a unified architecture. Don't view MarTech in a vacuum. And then speaking of making friends, make friends with the other channels. Really ensure that the strategy you think through is just aware of all the different ways that a customer user interacts with your brand. And then don't stop learning. Just keep evolving. And this is exciting stuff. It's never been easier. It's never been a better time to jump into personalization. Don't be intimidated. Follow these 5+1, these 6 steps, and I guarantee you'll make a lot of thoughtful progress in 2024.
Thanks, Scott. We've got a resources page here. I know we're going to send these slides out. So these are just some of the resources that are available between our two organizations. Some of these we've mentioned either statistics about or concepts from. So when you can click on these or just go to the sites and search for them, and you can get a little bit more detail on these different topics. So just wanted to make sure we included that in there. And that wraps up our official presentation. So we'll take a look to see what we've got for questions. I really hope that it was valuable. I know Scott and I have kind of enjoyed our time putting this together, and I think that we've got some good information that hopefully is valuable for you as you move forward with your personalization and data collection initiatives.
I mean, my question is, that I have is like, how to get the pink circle. I feel lucky. I feel like Barbie Pink is their own brand. I thank the designers. Like Academy Award winner. Like I feel like I'm the runner up.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool.
Awesome. Well, let's jump into some Q&A now. Brian, Scott, thank you for such an engaging conversation. I definitely had a few chuckles here behind the scenes. So let's jump into this first question. So this one says, how do you see personalization strategies evolving over the next few years with advancements in technology and customer data collection methods?
Well, I can I take a stab at that first, and then Scott, feel free to add. So obviously, AI is a big component about what's going to happen over the next couple of years. I still think that there's the hype outweighs the actual utilization at this particular point. I think it's worth experimenting with, but I don't think there's anything wrong with being a fast follower when it comes to Gen AI. I do think some of the other technology advancements around some of the machine learning models that are being created, some of the real-time personalization engines that are being put out there. Those are where I think you're going to see more of the advances and the ability to go omni-channel. So that's been a real challenge with getting that data together in a single place where you can really have an effect across all channels. And I feel like the technology is there today through APIs and the processing power that I mentioned earlier to really be much better at that omni-channel personalization kind of piece.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think the only thing I would add is that right now, if you wanted to do real time, you can only move as fast in personalization as your slowest data source. And so I think, right. If you're pulling data from a CRM, from a transactional source, I really do think that all these data sources are going to converge to be more real-time friendly. And you won't have those kind of weak links that just aren't, don't have the ability to feed real-time data. I think what won't change is the need to have good, clean, organized data. I feel like all those, the things I've heard about Gen AI is it's phenomenal at making conclusions about structured data. It's not great about structuring the data. And so, being able to, bring the data together, whether it's a data warehouse, a CDP, a DXP, in a clean, organized way, so that the technology and the people can do what they do best. I think that's gonna always be important.
Yeah, and one last thing to add in there, Scott, is the bias that can be associated with Gen AI or even machine learning models. I mean, they are learning on data that's already out there. So, having things in place within the systems that you have to really kind of double check that the conclusions that are being rendered by some of these models are not necessarily biased, and that your Gen I content is not biased and is inclusive. That's going to be something that I think is going to hold things back a little bit, but once we get that figured out, it'll open the floodgates.
Perfect. Thank you both. This next question that we have, it says, can you provide examples of companies who have successfully started implementing personalization?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, I gave a couple of examples of some of those, the machine learning examples. That's where we've seen some success. Not some, we've seen a lot of success. One of the ones that I didn't mention was a company that used Likely to Engage, which was, a way for them to send out emails based on how likely someone was to engage on a particular platform. And they saw an increase of open rates that wasn't that much, 100% increase in open rates, which was great, but a 275% increase in conversion. So again, I point to some of those machine learning models, but also, we've seen a lot of people kind of take the crawl, walk, run approach, which is, starting out with something as simple as product recommendations and providing a product based on geographic location of the users, and seeing good return on investment from things that are as simple as that. And Scott, you may have some other examples too.
Yeah, I mean, I think the example that comes to mind is we all remember the days that anytime we want a discount on an e-commerce company, we just add something to cart. And we wouldn't buy it. I've seen a number of kind of e-commerce folks that we work with take a more thoughtful stance and really understand which of their potential customers genuinely needs a discount to buy, and which ones don't, and frankly, which ones aren't even profitable. So we shouldn't even pursue them. And it's interesting because I find that example funny because it actually doesn't increase conversion at all, but it increases profit, which is something that we don't often think about as kind of deeply. But I think there's a lot of opportunities not only to increase top line, but also maybe keep top line the same, but increase bottom line.
Great point.
Yeah, I agree. This one here, this is a great question. So what are the key considerations for ensuring ethical data collection practices in personalization strategies? Scott, maybe you want to start with that one? Sure.
I mean, I think, it's we covered that kind of during the beginning of the presentation. And I think Bryant really nailed it when he said it's the creepiness factor. It really is that, there's I kind of think of these Venn diagrams. There's the circle of what can we collect and what should we collect. And what can is what can we collect from a legal perspective, from a, technology perspective, what is even possible to collect. And then the kind of what should we is this kind of putting on our empathetic hat and just saying whoa, how would I feel if someone collected that? Because, I'll be honest, I'm a data guy. I never read the terms and conditions of the website that they're there. They're 20 pages long, and they're probably very comprehensive. And honestly, they probably say that the retailer or the website that I'm visiting can collect literally anything about me. And so of that Venn diagram, the circle of what can they collect is very large. We need to calibrate that with the what should we collect circle in the Venn diagram.
Great point. Yeah, I definitely remember Bryant, you saying, "Don't be creepy," right? Definitely putting ourselves in the customer's shoes.
And be very transparent with what you're going to do with the data. I think having that data usage policy, very prevalent on your site, and having the ability for people to get in and out from a consentment standpoint, super important to doing it the right way.
Yeah,
people are jaded. I mean, like if they at all sense something isn't right, as we get these more and more of these opt-in cookie banners, like people are just going to say turn everything off. And in that world, nobody wins, because I do think more personalized experiences drive conversion rate, not because we're tricking anybody, but because we're giving people what they want. And like personalization is in everybody's interest. And so if we can't build that trust, show that value exchange to the point that Bryant was showing earlier, everyone loses. And so that it's on us as brands to be thoughtful, to be transparent, to not be creepy, and to make sure that people really really are okay sharing that data with us and feel like they're benefiting from it.
All great points. So I think that's all the time that we have for Q&A today. So I'm going to wrap up there. Just some final reminders to our audience members. This session has been recorded, so just keep an eye out on your inbox. You should be receiving an email with the link so you can view it on demand, share it with your team members, or just revisit some of the great points we spoke about today. And with that, I think we're all set. Bryant, Scott, any last minute remarks?
No, thank you very much for for having us. I enjoyed it, and thanks to Scott for pulling things together and giving some incredible insight. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, and I'd only say don't be a stranger. Our emails addresses are there for a reason. Reach out. Brian and I love chatting about data and personalization and marketing technology. And so if you have any questions or thoughts, or you also like talking about this stuff, reach out. We're only an email away.
I love it. Thank you both. And thank you to everyone. I hope you enjoy the rest of your days. Till the next one.
Thanks, everyone.